Well, let me...
Hello there, welcome. It's just gone 6 o'clock. My name is Michelle Dewberry and this is Dewbs & Co. You've just been hearing there live from the Commons. The Defence Secretary and, of course, the Shadow Defence Secretary as well. Why? Well, of course, we are on now day 10 of Operation Epic Fury. Things, ladies and gents, are not going well. I found it quite interesting today. A YouGov poll came out, a new one. 59% of people now say that they are opposed to this war. When you break it down, Labour supporters, 14% of them support it. Tories, 43% of them support it. Reform, 57% of them support it. So the conversation will rage among all of you at home tonight. Where are you? Do you support all of this we've seen today? Huge spikes, of course, in oil prices. What does that mean? Well, it means that the cost of pretty much everything, quite frankly, will soon be going up. What does that mean? Well, it means, of course, that inflation is going to rise. What should then our government be doing in all of this? And again, I ask you that question. Do you think that we should be more front-footed in all of this, or staying as much out of it as we possibly can? Keeping me company for the whole show tonight, I've got my panel, Michael Gove, and alongside him, I've got Luke Sullivan. Good evening, gents. You're both very welcome tonight. Do join the conversation in all the usual ways. You know how by now. You can email me, gbviews@gbnews.com. Go to the website, gbnews.com/yoursay. Of course, you can tweet, and you can X me. Michael Gove, where are you in all of this?
Well, I think that it's too soon to make a definitive judgment about whether or not this war has been a success or not. There are concerning signs, you're absolutely right. The Iranian regime seems to be determined to ensure that it can weather the storm that's been unleashed. But I think that Trump is right that if it is the case that we can secure an effective change in Tehran, then a temporary spike in oil and gas and energy prices will have been worth it.
Well, of course, what it looks likely now is that the change in Iran is going to be the son of the Ayatollah, which will actually be worse, perhaps, than the previous one.
It's certainly the case that the son has taken on this job, but my expectation is that this is likely to be a 0 hours contract for him. That this will probably be one of the least long-lived of Iran's rulers. I don't say that with any relish, because obviously you don't take pleasure in anyone's passing, but it is the case that Donald Trump, having gone in with an intention of ensuring that there was a more pliant leadership in Tehran, I'm sure that, you know, whatever happens within the next few weeks, he's not going to precipitately withdraw.
Of course, the son, he's of course lost his father. He's also lost his wife. He's also lost a child. So this guy will be filled with a rage that his father would have held, but now it will be, of course, on steroids. I've got to point out to you as well already that this new potential leader, he is reported as being wounded already. Luke Sullivan, your thoughts?
Well, I mean, I think if anybody was hoping for a softening of the regime and that the Council of Experts, I know Michael's not a massive fan of Council of Experts, but I think we can probably both agree on this, that it seems like a doubling down from the Iranian regime. I think this is somebody who has very rarely spoken in public. I don't think he's ever given an interview, but all the intelligence analysis and top reporting from around the world suggests that this is somebody who I think one of his best friends described him as a very dangerous man, and somebody who is likely to take an even harder line than the previous regime. Now, this is somebody who does not want this country and our allies well, and President Trump has already made clear that he wants a say in who rules Iran, and he's also, the Israelis have made clear, I think as Michael just said, that this may be quite a short-term contract and that he will be a target from the US and Israelis as well.
I do find that poll quite interesting because, of course, I think it was last week we did that, the YouGov did the poll, 49% of people opposed it. I find it quite staggering that that's leapt up now to just shy of 60%. Do you think that is a vindication then in some ways of Keir Starmer's, what many would argue, has been a lack of energy, a lack of desire to get involved in this situation?
Look, I think what is going to happen here is it's right that we make a judgment at the end of this. I think as I made clear to you last week when we were discussing this, the last thing that will be in the mind of the Prime Minister is the polls. It will be about doing what he thinks is the right thing in the national interest. Now, this time last week, he was getting criticism. It looks like this week that the public are with him. But, I mean, looking at that YouGov poll, it looks like it's the don't knows, those people who weren't sure, have gone to against. Now, I'm not sure it's a huge change. The British public, I don't think anybody wants to put our British service personnel in risk and at harm without being clear what the aims are and what the plan is. And that was what the Prime Minister took his judgment on, and that's, you know, the only judgment that he made.
Alan says, Michelle, I was watching the goings-on in Parliament just then, and he says our Defence Secretary is weak, and weak, he says. Josh, you also point out, this is very interesting actually, Josh, because you're quite right. He says this new Supreme Leader has houses in our country. Why are we not holding the assets of these people like what we do for Russia? What Josh is referring to is the son of the Ayatollah. He's got quite a lot of properties in London. Bishop's Avenue, one of the most expensive streets in the country. He has multiple properties there, and he's also, interestingly, got properties overlooking the Israeli embassies. What's that all about? Does that concern you, Michael, or not?
It does, but it emphasises two things. One, he may present himself as a holy man who has risen on the basis of his piety and his religious virtue to lead an Iran that is in opposition to the materialist West. But actually, we see him for what he is, and we see the Iranian leadership for what it is, a gang of thieves and crooks, liars and murderers. The second thing is, I don't imagine that he'll be able to enjoy those homes or even post them on Airbnb at the moment, because if we know that he owns them, then it will be the case that the people in the Treasury who do sanction enemy regimes will be able to do so.
And when the Defence Secretary was talking just a second ago, he was talking about the pre-planning that our country's done. He says, and I quote, he feels that that's made a real difference in all of this. Do you agree?
Well, it's impossible to know, because I don't know exactly what the choices were that were available to the Prime Minister and to the Defence Chiefs. In The Spectator last week, we had an account of what went on in the National Security Committee that suggested that there was some reticence on the part of some ministers, particularly Ed Miliband, to do actually what the Prime Minister wanted and to provide America with support. One of the things that it does cause concern is that even though, obviously, we've got very brave airmen out there in Cyprus and in the Gulf, what we haven't had is the naval presence that people are now calling for.
Rachel Reeves, she's been given a statement as well to the House of Parliament today. Let's take a listen to something that she had to say.
I will take the necessary decisions to help families with the cost of living and protect the public finances. This afternoon, I spoke with G7 finance ministers, setting out my priorities for the international cooperation needed. First, calling for immediate de-escalation and a return to the diplomatic process. Second, we must guarantee the security of vessels passing through the Strait of Hormuz. Third, I stand ready to support a coordinated release of collective International Energy Agency oil reserves.
Well, on that third point, we'll see how we get on with that, because the quantities, etc., haven't yet been confirmed. On that first point where Rachel Reeves starts talking about a de-escalation, I think that is naivety of the highest order. And I think when she talks about the Strait of Hormuz, what she doesn't reference there is the fact that it's the likes of France. They're having to step in and actually secure transit through that very tight water patch. Why is the UK not doing more on that side?
Well, look, I don't think it is naivety in the sense of it's a statement of fact. The simple biggest thing that could solve the problems that we've seen in our economic markets, in the oil market today, would be a de-escalation in the region. Now, I think there are some fair questions to be asked about the Strait of Hormuz. But look, we are in a place where France the French President Macron has made a quite sweeping statement, but I don't think anybody thinks that the French alone are going to be able to, allow shipping to start coming in and out of the Strait of Hormuz until we're able to guarantee the safety. And the threat appears to be the Iranians bombing, targeting shipping in that strait, and even the Americans aren't able to guarantee the safe transit of things. Now, there are questions about what we as the UK can do. I didn't get to see the whole of the original statement. There was obviously some talk about whether we would deploy our aircraft carrier into the region. But part of being part of a huge military alliance such as NATO is you can share different priorities across the world in different theatres, and we don't know the discussions that have gone on between the UK and the French government as to helping assess the overall package. And obviously one of the things I would say the Tories did well in their time in government was to get a much closer defence relationship between the UK and France.
I do find the concept of the French trying to police the Strait of Hormuz there to try and ensure safe passage, I do find that slightly laughable, given that they don't also seem to be able to spot dinghies when they're emerging to try and enter the channel. Fascinating how you can try and ensure safe military passage on in a literal war zone, but not stop blow-up inflatables, beyond me. Anyway, do you think we should be doing more in the Strait of Hormuz or not?
Well, it's hugely worrying, and the reason why different oil companies and other commercial concerns are worried is that even with all of the major ballistic missiles having been knocked out, you don't need that much in order to cripple an oil tanker. You can do it with small boats, drones, and other techniques which are pretty low level and unsophisticated but lethal. And that is why you will not get insurance for those vessels, which is why Iran can send its own ships through there to China, but we can't get the oil that is stored in Qatar. That is an issue, and I think given the fact that the Iranians effectively have put their boot on the West's windpipe, America will be, if it hasn't already, turning its attention to how it can relieve that pressure. If we can play a part, we should, because at the very least, making sure that oil and gas can continue to flow to the West has to be in our interests.
Someone else that was expressing their opinion as well over the weekend, Tony Blair, he was saying that he feels that Keir Starmer should have joined those first strikes with Israel and America. What do you think to that?
Oh, look, I wasn't particularly surprised that he made those comments, and I think they were private remarks at an event. I mean, in many ways, I thought the later statement saying that they were private remarks at a private event was slightly more interesting than the fact that he'd said them in the first place. But look, I don't think it's a big surprise, given Tony Blair's view on world events and where he should place the UK, that somebody like Tony Blair would think that and say that.
Many people might think that one of the reasons that people are turning against this is when you've got someone like Tony Blair banging the drum for it, that raises alarm bells. Many people watching this programme will think that Tony Blair should be up in The Hague because of the Iraq war.
At the risk of making myself even more unpopular with everyone, I very much disagree. Tony Blair is more unpopular than Keir Starmer. He's one of the few political figures in this country more unpopular than Keir Starmer. But he's right about this, as he has been about so many things.
And what would you say? You're both telling me you strongly disagree. I'm representing to you, viewers, every time we mention the words Tony Blair on this channel, I'm telling you, viewers will be getting in touch in their droves saying exactly what I've just said to you, that they feel he took us into an illegal war, they feel that he should be in The Hague and all the rest of it.
I totally disagree.
I disagree with that.
Well, what would you say back to those viewers that feel that?
What I would say was Tony Blair tried to go through a UN process. It had a level of, approval for a military intervention that most wars in the world don't get. Yes, it didn't go through the final formal legal process, but it never was, given the setup of the UN Security Council. Look, Tony Blair rightly has a view. He also, remember, won a general election after going into that war. Yes, it became a very unpopular war. And I think, the line from the government, from Keir Starmer, and I think I saw Steve read out earlier on today, was saying he strongly disagreed. But he has a complete ability to have that view. Now, I think what Keir Starmer and this Labour government are trying to do is, I think Iraq does hang over some of the decisions they've made. It's not a surprise that Keir Starmer, who was opposed to the Iraq war, both because of the legal case but also because of some of the military objectives, has a different view and has approached this in a different way to Tony Blair. But look, it was 20 years ago.
Well, there you go. Does that satisfy you? If you have that viewpoint about Tony Blair, get in touch, join the conversation in all the usual ways. One thing that's coming through on the inbox as well is the IRGC. Many of you are asking, why has this organisation not been prescribed in this country? Let's look at that after the break. Let's also as well discuss protecting what matters. Do you know what that is? It is the new plan for social cohesion in this country. Let's have a look after the break.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Bold.
They are under no illusion.
Brave.
Are you a human trafficker?
Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get this on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What I'm going to do now is they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There, you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Dewbs & Co. With me, Michelle Dewberry, alongside me till 7 o'clock. I've got Michael Gove and Luke Sullivan. One of the things that's coming through from you guys at home, you're asking the question, why are the IRGC not prescribed in this country? Even the EU, ladies and gents, even they have done it. Why have we not, Michael?
Foreign Office lawyers. when I was in government, this issue was often raised, and the Foreign Office lawyers took quite a sort of technical line. They said that you didn't prescribe organisations that were emanations or parts of a state. So you would prescribe terrorist organisations that had nothing to do with a state, you know, Hamas, Hezbollah, etc.
Yeah.
But what you couldn't do was prescribe something that was a legitimate, so they said, arm of a state. You know, to my mind, that is putting the law ahead of common sense, but that was their justification.
And do you think that still stands now? Because we've just been hearing John Healey a second ago in the Commons, and yet again, I mean, we know this stuff anyway, but he's talking about the threat that the likes of Iran place on us in terms of cyber attacks, in place of state-sponsored terror activity and all the rest of it. So do you think that that justification still holds water?
No, I think it holds much. I didn't think it held much water to begin with, but now I think that all the water's evaporated. Two things I'd say. One is that it's still the case, it was the case under the last government of which I was part, it is the case now that there are guys on the ground doing bad things on behalf of Iran, and the police, special branch and MI5 do monitor them and have just this weekend rounded some of them up.
And the Labour government, Luke, they're apparently looking into this, considering it. What are they waiting for?
Well, I'm not entirely clear, and I think that this is an issue that has bubbled along the surface for 18 months. This Labour government, in opposition, Labour said that they wanted to prescribe, and I think Michael's explanation is probably the right one. Now, the last time we heard the government minister being pressed about this, I think they were talking about bespoke legislation just for the IRGC. I think trying to put the dots together, and it will sound legal and technical, but the government are currently going through the High Court over their prescription of Palestine action. I think part of that ongoing court case, I think, is probably putting fear that the government's prescription of terrorism organisations is under some pressure, and therefore I suspect they're not wanting to, mix the two up. But that doesn't stop the government. They've got a huge majority. This would have overwhelming support in the House of Commons and the House of Lords to pass this quickly, to prescribe. And yes, this is a real threat. There are young people of all ages on the streets, even of London, who have been targeted by, Iranian thugs and part of their state with threats of death and serious violence. So, yes, it is a real and serious threat that this country faces.
And this is one of the problems with these not-so-small boats that keep coming in from the Channel, because we have no idea who lots of these men are. They're often of a young fighting age, and they do come from the likes of Iran. So when people end up with copious amounts of these men in hotels, etc., at the end of their road, they're frightened. They're fearful because of things like this.
And there was a very concerning story, I think it was in the Eye newspaper today, saying that the Iranian, terrorist state openly advertising on social media, almost outsourcing. I think it was described as a sort of, gig economy for, thugs and, violence on the streets of the UK. Now, this is a real threat that this country is dealing with. We've heard MI6 and MI5 chiefs talk really in alarming terms about what the threat is posed by Iran. And, the British public rightly want to consider, is everything being done? And as Michael's just said, I think last week we saw our, excellent security services, foil what looks like a plot for Iranian spies in the UK as well.
It was International Women's Day. I think it was yesterday. I'm not really into all these kind of national days, but I think it was yesterday. You'll correct me if I'm wrong. And I always find it quite interesting how few people then pay attention to the women in Iran and how they get treated. I don't know if you saw this football match. I'm going to show you a clip. This is the Women's Asian Cup. It was played in Australia. Just take a watch and a listen to the Iranian women's football team. So in case you're not up on all of the country's national anthems, that was the Iranian one. Those ladies, some of them anyway, were refusing to sing along with that anthem. They kind of just put their head down and just wouldn't do it. And then you saw really upsetting scenes, actually, when this team then tried to leave this game. I think I can show you some of this footage as well. Watch. Hang on, it's coming. There we go. So this is the team bus, basically, and you've got lots of people that are essentially anti-regime. They're trying to block the bus and get these women off to safety. And actually, if the clip zooms in, and I think it does at one point, you see these ladies, some of them anyway, doing the international sign. It's like this gesture that you do with your hand, basically asking for help. There's such worries now that if they go back to Iran, these ladies will be punished. They've already been criticised for being disrespectful, etc., to the regime. There's concerns that the families as well of these women will be targeted. You've got now 5 of them apparently granted asylum in Australia. I mean, the way this regime treats its women is mind-blowing, Michael Gove.
Yes, these are real lionesses. This is amazingly brave of those women to show that they do not support what is going on in their country's name. And you're absolutely right that the Iranian regime has been continually oppressive of women, requiring them to cover their head, requiring them to conform to particular laws that are not just, prejudiced against women, but are fundamentally an erosion of individual dignity. And, the bravery and courage that those women have shown and the grant of asylum, they're both inspirational.
And this is one of the points, because women in some of these countries like Iran, Luke, they are seen as less than. They're almost seen as property of chattel of men to do with whatever you choose. And this is the concern that many people have with these not-so-small boats, because when you import men from cultures where these men have grown up seeing women as less than, as commodities, as kind of things to do whatever you... basically, like items to satisfy your sexual desires with, etc. When you see a woman in that way, you don't then suddenly get on a dinghy and change your whole world view when presented with a female in Britain.
Well, I mean, I think, just to echo what Michael said, those women are incredibly brave, and, if they return back to Iran, they would almost certainly face serious punishment. And I think at the heart of what's been going on, and people have strong views about whether or not the military action was the right thing to do, there's no denying that at the turn of this year, people campaigning, protesting against a totalitarian regime were murdered by their own government and rulers on the streets of Tehran. Now, one of the impacts, we've talked a little bit about the economic impact, but it's bound to be, if this action continues for a long time, we are going to see a rise in the number of asylum cases from Iran, and it's already one of the hotspot countries from people persecuted leaving Iran. Now,
but you're dodging my point about you're dodging my point, not slightly, you're dodging it massively. My point is the security of British women, because we all echo the sentiment that we wish these ladies well. We want the Iranian ladies to be safe and well and hopefully taken care of. But my point that you're trying to avoid is the fact that actually British women, our national security now is under threat, because you cannot be a man born and bred in a culture which disregards women and then literally get on a rubber dinghy and have a whole personality transplant.
I think we should be really careful not to... Look, we've always been an open, tolerant country for offering refuge for people who are genuine asylum seekers. Yeah. I also think we should be really careful that because you grew up in a totalitarian state means that you yourself, having a mum, having a sister, respecting women, that doesn't necessarily mean that you have that same ideology. And we've already seen in the brave people who protest...
Don't you think we need to be really careful, to quote your words, to actually protect British women, because we are seeing it time and time again. And by the way, we're not seeing the full extent of it. I don't believe that we've got full transparency as to everything that's going on with some of these men when they're coming into this country. I don't believe that information is being transparent at all. But I always find it quite interesting that the primary focus is on the well-being and the needs of these men, as opposed to the first priority of this government, our government, which is the safety of the citizens here, i.e. the women in this country.
I completely agree that any government's first responsibility is safe and secure borders and the protection of the UK population. But I think we also just need to be very careful that we are saying that all asylum seekers, because there have been some absolutely horrendous cases, that tars all asylum seekers with the same brush.
I didn't say all asylum seekers. I'm just applying basic common sense that when someone's been brought up with the mindset that a woman is a less than thing to do with what you want, it is basic common sense to recognise that some of those people will continue that behaviour when they enter a different shore, in this case, i.e. the UK.
I think there's a difference in Iran itself. I think that the people who are running Iran absolutely hold that medieval view that you describe. But there are lots of people in Iran who want to see a change of regime. Whether or not we will see that, we may tragically not. But there are lots of people in Iran who do want a fairer society. And
don't get me started on the fact, by the way, if the Iranian regime is so unkind to the women and the girls, why are the men just leaving their women and girls in Iran then, when they're getting on these not-so-small boats? Riddle me that. Anyway, look, coming up after the break, we need to talk about protecting what matters. That is the name given to the Labour Party's new plan to create social cohesion. I'll see you in a sec.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there, welcome to your latest holiday sun forecast. So there's more rain on the way for parts of Spain and Italy, but for a lot of the Mediterranean, it does look like it'll start to settle down middle part of the week. At the moment, still some chilly weather for the Canaries, but even there it'll warm up as we go through the next few days. But you can see plenty of rain for parts of Spain and Italy, but already some sunshine down towards Turkey and Greece, and that will become much more widespread, as I mentioned, across the Mediterranean as we go through Wednesday and Thursday.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello again. Very good evening to you. I'm here with your GB News weather update from the Met Office. We do have some more persistent rain starting to push its way in from the west as we go through tonight and into tomorrow. Cloud is going to be quite prevalent, not a huge amount of sunshine on offer. That's because there are so many fronts, but it's a front out towards the west that's bringing more persistent rain. Initially across Northern Ireland, but it is going to feed into western parts of Scotland as we go through the early hours of tomorrow. Ahead of that, a lot of cloud for many places, some outbreaks of rain here and there, just some clearer spells, perhaps across parts of the Midlands maybe, and where we get any clearer breaks could turn a little chilly for some of us, but most places seeing the cloud, and as a result temperatures not dropping especially low. So we wake up tomorrow morning, quite a grey start for many of us, just this slice of clearer skies across some central into southern areas, having a bit more sunshine here. Elsewhere, yes, lots of cloud, a few outbreaks of rain, nothing especially heavy, perhaps some more persistent rain initially for Northern Ireland, but that clearing through, so starting to turn drier here as we go through the morning. Bit of a west-east split across much of Scotland, quite cloudy, damp across central and western parts. Eastern areas have a greater chance of some brighter skies, but even here the clouds going to build as we go through the day, and most places really by the afternoon are going to be largely grey and cloudy, just a glimmer of sunshine perhaps over some parts of eastern England. Later on we will see more wet weather pushing its way in across parts of Northern Ireland, and we'll see the winds strengthening as well. Temperatures for many, well, they are generally going to be getting into double figures, but not quite as high as today, particularly towards the southeast. That rain I mentioned in the far west later on tomorrow, that pushes through overnight as we go through into Wednesday, clears away, with then some blustery, showery weather coming into particularly northern and western parts of the UK as we go through Wednesday. Towards the southeast, a greater chance of seeing something drier for a time, but there's more changeable weather to come as we go through this week, and temperatures will be dropping as well. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Britain, for making GB News Radio such a huge success. Whether you're in the car, on the go, or listening at home, thank you for choosing us as your radio station.
Good evening. This is the latest AI travel news from GBnews.com. On the A9, northbound between Luncarty and Bankfoot, traffic is restricted by planned maintenance. In Essex, the M11 southbound between Junction 6 and Junction 4 has lane closures after a road traffic collision, with delays of around 50 minutes. Also in Kent, the A2 eastbound at the junction with the A2260 is partially blocked after an incident, with 3 of 4 lanes closed and similar delays. And on the trains, Avanti West Coast has major disruption on some routes, and Cross Country is reporting major disruption at Glasgow Central. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
GB Loyalty Points is here. They're our way of saying thank you for spending time with GB News. Through commenting on your say, voting in You Decide polls and shaping the debate, you can earn GB Loyalty Points. Unlock rewards, reach milestones and climb leaderboards. Don't just watch our programmes, come and be part of them. Get started by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/loyalty points.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Dewbs & Co with me, Michelle Dewberry, till 7 alongside me, the editor of The Spectator and former Secretary of State Michael Gove, alongside him, the former political director to Sir Keir Starmer, Luke Sullivan. Welcome back, good evening to you all. Right, lots of you are getting in touch as well. There is a huge sense of sympathy and passion, if you would like, when it comes to prescribing the IRGC. One of my viewers has got in touch and said, please, 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 can you point out, Michelle, that not all Iranian people support the grotesque IRGC. Consider it done. Alex, there you go. You told them for me. Now, how cohesive is your society? How much has your society changed? I find this very interesting, you know, because a new strategy that's coming out today, anytime now to be precise, is called Protecting What Matters, and it looks at social cohesion in and among the country. There's some interesting things in this, talking about an annual state of extremism report, Michael. They want to create an anti-Muslim hostility SAR, and so on. It talks about they want to remind people of the shared values that unite us as a nation and unite people around love for their local area. There's a lot to unpick in here. Yes. What's your thoughts? And I've got to say as well, you guys, The Spectator, you got a copy of this in advance leaked to you.
Well, I think it's a mixed bag, and I think that it is good the government is taking extremism seriously. In the paper that was leaked, it's about more than just isolating the bad guys. It's about reinforcing some of the things that do bring us together, making sure, for example, that the English language becomes and for that matter Welsh, a precondition for full citizenship, looking at the citizenship tests that we have in this country and so on. So there is a lot in it. I myself have reservations about having a specific czar to deal with anti-Muslim hostility. I think the key thing is that the government overall should be dealing with hatred towards Muslims, anti-Semitism, and indeed prejudice towards Sikhs and other minorities with equal vigour. And I think once you start dividing up the responsibilities with different czars and czarinas, then problems accumulate rather than being tackled effectively. But I think that it's only fair that when the government does take seriously the threat from extremists, that we should give them, at least initially, the benefit of some doubt.
Luke?
Look, I think there is a lot of good things in this plan. As Michael said, some of them are controversial. There are quite a lot of different things going on here. But ultimately, what this Labour government is seeking to do is a thing that we often talk on this show quite passionately about, which is how do we bring us more closely together as a country? How do we lift up the values of Britain and make sure that the people who are living and working in this country who might decide that they want to emigrate here and do those really important jobs that we need skilled migrants to do, how do we make sure the UK is a really cohesive country where we have a politics that is open and we're not living in individual silos and communities and the politics of division and hatred isn't spread?
Some of the obvious things that jump out to my mind is the report says, and I quote, it identifies Islamist extremism as the principal threat to social cohesion. So if you feel that Islamist extremism is the principal threat, why wouldn't you have an anti-Islamist czar?
Well, I think that's exactly what government overall should be doing. So if the Islamist threat is violent, then that's the role of the police and MI5 to deal with. If it's non-violent extremism, that is for all of government to deal with. And in this document, there's a definition of extremism that I'm sure people will debate. But what the government says is that it's not going to fund or have anything to do with organisations that spread hate, and it's going to make sure that local government and schools and so on know what the danger is. And I think, to be fair, I mean, we'll see how it's executed, to be fair, saying, watch out. There are people who are taking advantage, as you said earlier, of our basic generosity of spirit to spread poison. We need to be vigilant.
And one of the things that is pretty sure to damage cohesion is out-of-control immigration from people from foreign countries into one's local communities that often don't want to integrate. And many people will look back to things that your party did, so the Boris wave, etc., the sheer volume of people and the kind of pace of that into this country has changed communities, in some cases, forever. That has contributed massively to a lack of cohesion.
Well, it's certainly the case, as I think this government has acknowledged, that if you carry on with a rate of migration at the rate that we had between 2021 and 2024, that public services can't cope, and the understandable anger that people have at the rapid change in their communities will lead to division. I think that's why you now have a consensus across all parties that it needs to be tackled. Some people will think that Shabana Mahmood is not going far enough. Others, including within the Labour Party, think that she's going too far. But it's the case that Kemi Badenoch, Shabana Mahmood and, of course, Reform all agree that the numbers that we had over those 3 years were far too high.
And one of the things that gets suggested, I mean, just to be clear as well, I do not support anti-Muslim hatred. I don't support any, Muslims getting abused just because of the fact that they are Muslims. But I do find it quite interesting. People will suggest that your party, especially off the back of Gorton and Denton, is now pandering to the Muslim voter bloc. Because when I've got a report that tells me, look, the biggest problem here is Islamist sentiment, Islamist extremism, but never mind that, we're going to focus on protecting people from anti-Muslim hate. One of the things that is fueling so-called anti-Muslim hate is the fact that some people, not all, from that community do want to create terrorism, do want to dictate what cultural norms, etc., would need to be. Are you pandering to that voter bloc?
Absolutely not. Look, this is a piece of work that has been in gestation in this Labour government for the entirety of the 18 months they've been in. I think Michael himself did some work on this when he was a government minister. Now, this doesn't happen overnight. What is important is we do deal with the extremism, but also that people can go about their everyday life and practice their religion as they see fit without being abused or attacked in the streets.
Well, there you go. What do you make to it all? I'm sure you will have strong opinions on that. Coming up after the break, have you got a dog? Should you have to have a licence if you've got one? Let's discuss in 2. I'm Michelle Dewberry. This is Dewbs & Co. with you until 7.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie is here. It's GB News, Britain's news channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device, and as long as you have an internet connection. Tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pearce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun. No, he didn't say that, Dave. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Dewbs & Co. with me, Michelle Dewberry, Michael Gove and Luke Sullivan. One of my viewers has got in touch and said, Michelle, International Women's Day was actually on Saturday, but they took too long to get ready, so they had to push it back to Sunday instead. I like what you did there, I do. Look, do you have a dog? Are you a dog lover? We are, of course, a nation of dog lovers. Well, the Green Party, get this. I think this is important looking at because, of course, as the Green Party rise up, lots of their potential policy ideas will be coming now under scrutiny. This one suggesting that if you've got a dog, you should have a licence, basically, in order to earn one. We used to have a similar scheme like this. It was scrapped a long time ago. Now, if you've got certain kind of breeds of dogs, you do have to have a type of licence, but surely not widespread. Where are you on this, Michael? Good idea or not?
No. I think having got rid of them 40 years ago, now is not the time to bring back more bureaucracy. It is the case that for people who love animals, they will invest time and care and quite a lot of expense in looking after the pets that they love, and they bring joy. And if it is the case that anyone is neglectful or abusive, there are quite rightly very strong punishments that can be directed by the courts and also by the RSPCA against those who mistreat animals. So I don't think you need an additional level of bureaucracy. I think, as is the case with so many of the policies that the Greens come up with, they're either toxic or gimmicks, and this is both.
I've got to say, I'm just looking at the inbox now. Lots of you are getting in touch saying you think this is a good idea. Paul says, Michelle, this is a good idea. It will fund the protection of dogs. It'll weed out unscrupulous breeders, but it might cost more to administer than government collected from it. What do you think, Luke?
I think in Ireland they have a similar scheme, and I think it's something like £20 a year registration now. People love their dogs and spend a lot of money, but I do question whether the aims of this policy could be achieved without the huge level of government bureaucracy. But I think where Michael's right is the Greens are where they are in the polls. What is going to happen now over the next period of time is people are going to look at their policies now. This one is an arguable one, but they have got a range of other policies, such as wanting to get rid of our independent nuclear deterrent, or at a time when you can disagree about the rush to clean energy, but nobody in the mainstream denies that we should be investing in nuclear power. The Greens are against it. We're going to see all over the place now the Greens and serious questions about their actual policies rather than people's hopes and dreams of what they think the Greens' policies are.
Yeah, the Greens, for example, want to massively reduce meat eating, but legalise crack. On the whole, you know, if it's a choice between the two, I think we should probably massively restrict crack use and legalise meat eating.
Lots of you are getting in touch about this dog one. It's really got you talking. Bernadette says, Michelle, all dogs should wear muzzles when they're out in public. Well, even those, I mean, I must confess, I'm not a dog person. I don't really know all the breeds, but those like little fluffy things that people carry, you think that needs to be muzzled, Bernadette? I don't know. Janet says, a dog licence is a great idea. There are too many people who abuse animals and should be on an at-risk register. Archie, to your point, he says, we've always had a dog licence in Northern Ireland. Keith, maybe somebody out there has been listening to you. You say, I've been advocating for this, Michelle, for years. The money could proportionately be donated to Battersea Dogs Home and other charities. It would mean that animals are better treated, he says. Anyway, the Green Party say our policies on the cost of living, NHS public services and the environment are proving increasingly popular with voters, they say. Our policies on improving animal welfare will prove just as popular. There you go. Bernadette, I reckon you will have got people talking. Your suggestion there that all dogs should be muzzled. I'll leave you to fight that one out amongst yourselves on your say. But anyway, look, that's all I've got time for. Luke, thank you for your company tonight. Michael, thank you for yours. And of course, thank you to each and every one of you for yours. Have a fantastic night and I'll see you tomorrow night.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello again. Very good evening to you. I'm here with your GB News weather update from the Met Office. But you have some more persistent rain starting to push its way in from the west as we go through tonight and into tomorrow. Cloud is going to be quite prevalent, not a huge amount of sunshine on offer. That's because there are so many fronts, but it's a front out towards the west that's bringing more persistent rain. Initially across Northern Ireland, but it is going to feed into western parts of Scotland as we go through the early hours of tomorrow. Ahead of that, a lot of cloud for many places, some outbreaks of rain here and there, just some clearer spells, perhaps across parts of the Midlands maybe, and where we get any clearer breaks could turn a little chilly for some of us, but most places seeing the cloud, and as a result temperatures not dropping especially low. So we wake up tomorrow morning, quite a grey start for many of us, just this slice of clearer skies across some central into southern areas, having a bit more